Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So that we can refer back to this for one. As an example, look at how persuasion was used back in Julius Caesar. Is it similar to this character here? The idea is looking also at people. It's people's traits and what makes them do what they want to do. So hopefully I can look at it and refer back to it, but they can use all of the examples that they found from their charts to say, okay, is there evidence here of how this person behaved, or does the evidence on your chart, show what you need to do to write later? So it's all evidence that we're going to use for a later point in time.
Okay.
So I would say, to me too, I'm looking at, can they take this information and are they eventually going to be able to organize it in their writing?
Yes.
So that's the biggest thing, is can we take this information and transpose it into what we're going to write? Hopefully.
Yes, well,
That's the goal. That's the goal. Totally the goal.
So what behaviors did you observe in that lesson that you thought maybe indicated that students were not engaged?
I guess the biggest thing was watching, did people have their book out, first of all? If a group did not have a book, so do you know what's going on, or do you need to open it? Do you know what scene you're doing? No. Then how come no one has their book open? So it was easy to look and observe right there. When we got to the end, and you eventually had to write your, I guess, kind of like your exit slip, you write your half sheet first person narrative. Were they actually writing? Were they actually doing that? I was able to watch people on, who was drawing on the chart, who was writing in which corner, kind of along those lines, I guess, for looking at who was active. I don't know. I guess going around and just touching them and say, what are you doing? Do you get this, or do you have questions? So it just varies from group to group. And especially if I heard from a group that, here's the scene we're doing, I said, well, the other group is doing the same scene. Maybe we should pick something different. We don't want everyone to do the same one. And some of them had a lot of fun with it, too, and did weird stuff, for the performance scenes. But when it came to the charts, it was interesting to see who ended up deciding to draw what, or who had listening just to their ideas of how we're going to organize this so another group can understand what we did. I think that was the key, is how do I make sure that my other group understands my chart and can understand this person? What do I need to put on there? And it couldn't be just a list of words. So,
I got to think. Did you have a plan for students who chose not to participate?
That's a good question, because I didn't have anyone not participate. And I think because we did some other activities like this earlier in the year where everyone has to have a part somehow. Like with the still lifes, it didn't matter if you were a tree or a statue, you had to be in the scene somehow. Everyone had to participate. So no, I guess I really didn't have a plan at this point, because part of it was you have to work with your group. That's just part of the requirement. This is what you need to do to accomplish your product.
And they knew that, and they all did.
They did, so
So is there anything that concerns you about the lesson?
Well, no, except for the fact that I did really have kids who asked if they could actually act out their scene to start with. And I said, no, actually you can't. You're not going to be able to do that. You have to just show me in a snapshot what was happening there. And the other thing that probably did concern me was watching for anyone who just might be sitting back and not participating to the group project, I guess product, that they were going to, output, making sure that everyone somehow participated. That was probably my biggest fear, more than anything else. And I did have to prompt a few kids. Say, what do you know about this, or what can you add, or maybe you should look in the book on this page and you be in charge of that page. So I did tell that to certain kids. I said, okay, assign each person a page. Is there any extra information on each of these pages that maybe somebody else told us about that character? So that was probably the only thing.
Was there anything frustrating about this lesson?
That's a good question.
You haven't read the responses yet, so maybe
no,
that will be the
and I think that's probably it right there, because the goal then is to see, did they understand enough? Are they understanding what drives people? I mean, can we just look at them to know something? What words do they say for us to understand them? So so I would probably say that's will be the biggest key when I actually read those.
Okay. What are some things that you might have done at the start of class that would have strengthened the outcome for the students?
Given each group a different scene that they had to pick from. That might have intensified it and said, okay, you have Act 1, Scene 1, Scene 2, Scene 3, and then they would be forced. But I didn't do that. I let them pick on their own, because I knew from me being gone a time before that I didn't know exactly how far everybody got in the script either. So it was a matter, for me, also knowing what do you understand at this point and where do we need to go from here. So that might be one thing I would do differently.
What other ways could you assess students who may not learn this way?
Oh, that's a good question, because actually part of this I did for kids who don't necessarily just assess by writing and doing those type of things, so they could do the visual. But there are kids who might just want to draw a picture on their own and say, okay, this is my picture of how I understood it. So those kids who are just artistic in that line, that would be one anyway to look at.
Kind of have them talk it out.
Yes.
Versus write it out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that might be one way.
What might you do differently to make this lesson stronger in the future?
So possibly looking at doing maybe, eventually turning that into a stronger, like, paper maybe at the end to make them describe their person. Or instead of making it so general, making them look for a specific thing for each of those people. Why might this person be negative based on the tactics that they use to persuade people? So maybe looking at a whole different level of thought process if they're ready for it. That might be one thing.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Wow.
I think that's all I have. So, that's it. Thank you.
Yay, no problem.
Thank you. All right. I will edit these together